The space station called Seven was huge. It floated in the darkness between 12 star systems, and it was home to 1,000 different alien species. They came here to trade, to talk, and to make deals. The station had been peaceful for many years. Ambassador had worked here for 40 cycles, and he thought he understood how the galaxy worked. He was wrong. His body was thin and tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like living crystal. When he felt emotions, his skin would change colors. Right now, as he walked toward the docking bay, his skin was a calm blue. He was going to meet the new arrivals from a planet called Earth. He had read the files about humans. The information made him nervous, but he told himself there was nothing to worry about. They were just another species. How different could they be? The ship was called the Persistence. It was not beautiful like ships. It was blocky and solid, built to survive rather than to impress. When the doors opened, 2 humans walked out. The first was a male named. He was a lieutenant in something called the Earth Defense Force. He walked with an easy confidence, like he owned every room he entered. He was not very tall by human standards, but something about him made one to step back. The second was a female named Park. She was an engineer, and her eyes were already moving around the docking bay, studying everything. She carried a bag of tools over her shoulder, and she looked at the station's walls like she wanted to take them apart and see how they worked. Stepped forward and made the traditional greeting. He pressed all 4 hands together and bowed his head. "Welcome to Seven," he said. "I am Ambassador. I will be your guide during your stay here." Smiled and stuck out one hand. Had read about this. It was called a handshake. He carefully extended one of his own hands and grabbed it firmly. Too firmly. Felt his crystal bones creak under the pressure. Was not even trying to squeeze hard. This was just his normal grip. Skin flashed yellow with alarm. "Nice to meet you," said cheerfully. "This is a beautiful station, much nicer than I expected." "Thank you," managed to say. He pulled his hand back and tried not to show his pain. "I have reviewed your species file. It says you come from a class 12. Laughed. "Is that what you call Earth?" "Yes. Your planet has extreme gravity, a toxic atmosphere with high oxygen levels, and dangerous predators on every land mass. The survival rating for non-native species is less than 4%. And looked at each other. Then they both shrugged. "Earth's not that bad," said. "You get used to it." Skin flashed through several colors at once. Get used to it. The humans said this like surviving on a death planet was just a small problem, like it was normal. He led them through the station, showing them the trading halls, the diplomatic quarters, and the recreation areas. Along the way, strange things kept happening. A heavy cargo container had fallen and was blocking a corridor. The workers were waiting for a lifting machine to move it, walked over, studied the container for a moment, and then simply picked it up. He moved it to the side of the corridor and set it down gently. "There you go," he said to the shocked workers. "Anything else need moving?" The container weighed 300 kilograms, had lifted it like it was nothing. Later, they passed the engineering section. A group of technicians were arguing about a broken water recycling machine. There were dangerous beings with poisonous claws, but right now they looked frustrated and helpless. "Stop to watch. What's wrong with it?" she asked. "The internal filter is damaged," one explained. "We cannot fix it without shutting down the entire system, but if we shut it down, this section will have no water for 2 days. Nodded. She studied the machine for a moment. Then, before anyone could stop her, she opened a maintenance panel and climbed inside. The machine was still running. Screamed. Everyone in the corridor screamed. The recycler was full of spinning blades and crushing gears. No being could survive inside it while it was operating. But did. She climbed back out 5 minutes later, covered in water and lubricant, holding a broken filter in her hand. "Found the problem," she announced. "Do you have a spare filter? I can install it while I'm in there." The just stared at her with their many eyes. They had no words. Skin had turned completely white. This was the color of absolute terror. By the end of the first week, the humans had caused 3 diplomatic incidents, not because they were mean or rude. They were actually very friendly. The problem was that they kept helping in ways that terrified everyone. But the real trouble started on the recreation deck. The recreation deck was the social heart of the station. Species from all over the galaxy came here to relax, play games, and show off their strength. For many years, this area had been controlled by the. There were warriors. They were huge, covered in natural armor, and they lived for challenge and combat. Their champion was named the Unyielding. He was the strongest being on the station, and everyone knew it. No one had ever beaten him in any contest. When walked into the recreation hall, saw him immediately. The human was small compared to he looked soft and weak, but had heard the stories about what humans could do. He wanted to test this strange new species. "Human," called out in his deep, rumbling voice. He stood up from his seat and he was massive. His shadow covered half the room. "Your kind claims to come from I want to see if this is true. I challenge you." The entire hall went quiet. Every being stopped what they were doing to watch. Challenges from were famous. Even they, with their poison claws, had learned to politely refuse. Looked up at the massive alien. He was holding a drink in his hand, some kind of earth alcohol. "Sure," he said calmly, "just give me a second." He turned to and held out his drink. "Hold my beer." Those 3 words would become famous across the galaxy, but at that moment only understood what they meant. Her face changed. She took the drink and immediately started backing away toward the exit. Watched her retreat with confusion. "Where are you going?" he asked. Did not stop walking. "I've seen that look on his face before. Trust me, you should come with me, get behind something solid." "But why? What is he going to do?" Reached the doorway. She looked back at with an expression that mixed resignation, anticipation, and something else. Something that looked a lot like fear. "I don't know exactly," she admitted. And that's the problem. When a human says, "Hold my beer," anything can happen. Usually something impossible. Often something that breaks the laws of physics. Always something that makes everyone else question their understanding of reality. She stepped through the door and called back over her shoulder. "The smart move is to run. Don't think about it. Don't ask questions. Just run." Should have listened. He really should have listened. But he stayed to watch. And what he saw that night changed his understanding of humans forever. It changed the entire galaxy's understanding of humans. Because the Unyielding was about to learn why Earth was called a. And he was about to learn why humans smiled when they faced impossible challenges. They smiled because they knew something that no other species understood. They smiled because to them, impossible was just another word for interesting. The Unyielding stood in the center of the recreation hall. He was 3 meters tall and built like a mountain. His body was covered in thick armor plates that could stop most weapons. His arms were as thick as tree trunks. He had never lost a challenge. Not once. Not ever. In front of him stood, the human looked small. He looked soft. He looked like something could break without trying. But did not look afraid. That was the strangest thing. Every other species showed fear when facing. Their bodies would shake. Their voices would tremble. They would make excuses and try to escape. Just looked curious, like this was going to be fun. "I will explain the challenge," announced. His voice filled the entire hall. "We will test endurance. We will both grip the pain pillar." A group of warriors brought out a tall metal column. It was covered in glowing symbols and humming with power. Every being in the room moved back when they saw it. "This device sends waves of pain through the body," explained. "The pain increases every minute. The first one to let go loses. Do you understand?" "Seems simple enough," said. He walked over to the pillar and studied it. What's the maximum level? Laughed. It was not a nice laugh. The device goes to level 20, but no living creature can survive past level 12. The pain would destroy the mind. Most species cannot survive past level 5. And what's the record? 7. A warrior named held on until level 7 before he fell. He was unconscious for 3 days after, smiled with his many teeth. I myself have reached level 9, the highest anyone has ever gone. Nodded slowly. Okay, and what do I win if I beat you? The hall went completely silent. Beat him. No one talked about beating, they talked about surviving against him. They talked about lasting a few minutes before the pain became too much. But beating him, that was impossible. His eyes narrowed. If you win, he said slowly, then we'll give you a warrior's respect. We will treat your kind as equals. And if I lose, then you will admit that humans are weak, that your stories are lies. Smiled Deal. They took their positions on opposite sides of the pillar, wrapped his massive hands around the metal. Did the same. His hands looked tiny compared to the aliens. A judge stepped forward. The challenge begins, now. The pillar started to hum. The symbols glowed brighter. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Watch from the crowd, his crystal skin shifting through colors of worry and fear. Around him, beings from dozens of species were recording everything on their devices. This would be talked about for years. Level 1, the judge announced. Both contestants stood still, looked bored, looked relaxed. Level 2. Still nothing. The pain was starting, but it was not yet strong. Level 3. A slight tightening around his eyes. Armor plates shifted slightly. Level 4. Now the pain was real, could see it in their bodies. His muscles had tensed. His jaw was tight, but neither one showed signs of giving up. Level 5. This was where most species broke. The pain at level 5 was described as fire in the blood. It was agony beyond description. In the crowd, an ambassador covered his eyes. He could not watch anymore. But both contestants held on. Level 6. Was sweating now. A strange copper-smelling liquid ran down his armored body. His breathing was heavy and hard. He was in real pain. Had closed his eyes. He was breathing in a slow, steady rhythm. In through the nose, out through the mouth. His face was calm. Level 7. This was the record, the highest any non had ever survived. Let out a low growl. His whole body was shaking. The pain was eating him alive. Opened his eyes, he looked, confused. Is it working? He asked. I feel something, but it's not too bad, kind of like putting your hand in very cold water. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. The translator devices struggled to keep up. Every being was trying to understand what they had just heard. Level 8. Screamed. It was not a roar of challenge. It was a scream of pure suffering. His armor plates were cracking from the tension in his muscles. Blood was running from under his natural protection. Frowned. Are you okay, big guy? We can stop if you need to. Never shouted. A never surrenders. Level 9. This was personal record, the highest anyone in history had ever reached, and he was at his limit. Every part of his body was crying out for him to let go. His vision was blurring. His mind was starting to break. But the human was still holding on. The human was looking at him with genuine concern. Seriously, said, you don't look good, there's no shame in stopping. What are you? Gasped. Level 10. Could not think anymore. The pain had consumed everything. He existed only as suffering. Every memory, every thought, every dream was drowned in agony. Beside him winced slightly. Okay, now I'm starting to feel it. This is like that time I touched an electric fence back home, kind of tingly. Level 11. His hands released the pillar. He collapsed to the floor with a crash that shook the room. His massive body lay still, barely breathing. Medical teams rushed forward to help him. Was still holding on. He said, looking around. Should I stop? I don't want to be rude, but if the contest is over. The judge stared at him with wide eyes. You may release the pillar. Let go and step back. He shook his hands a few times like they had fallen asleep. Then he walked over to and knelt beside him. Hey, he said gently. You did really well. That was impressive. Are you going to be okay? Looked up at the human through eyes full of pain and confusion. His whole life, he had been the strongest, the unbeatable champion. And now this small, soft creature had broken him without even trying hard. What are you? Whispered again. What kind of monsters does your planet create? Laughed softly. Monsters? No, I'm just a regular guy from that's a city on Earth. Nice beaches, good seafood. He helped the medical team lift onto a stretcher. When you feel better, let me buy you a drink. You seem like a good person. From across the hall walked over. She had been watching from behind a support column. Are you done showing off? I wasn't showing off, he challenged me. And you just had to win. Was I supposed to lose on purpose? That would be disrespectful. Approached them slowly. His crystal body was cycling through so many colors that it hurt to look at him. He had seen something impossible. He had watched a human endure pain that would kill most species, and the human had called it tingly. Lieutenant said carefully, I must ask, are you a typical member of your species, or are you special in some way? Thought about it. I'm pretty average, I think. Maybe a little above average for pain tolerance, but nothing special. Why? Patted on his crystal shoulder. Don't worry, she said. You'll get used to it. Humans are just built different. Behind them, medical teams were still working on. Around them, aliens from 100 worlds were sending urgent messages to their home planets. The messages all said the same thing. The humans are here. They are worse than we thought. Prepare yourselves. But it was too late for preparation. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. 2 months had passed since the humans arrived on 7. In that time, they had become famous. Stories about them spread across the galaxy. The Pain Pillar incident was talked about on 1,000 worlds. Videos of climbing inside the running machine had been watched billions of times. But nothing prepared the station for what happened next. It started with a simple accident. A cargo ship was coming into dock. The pilot made a small mistake. Small mistakes in space can become big problems very fast. The ship hit the outer ring of the station at high speed. The crash tore open 3 compartments. Air rushed out into space. Metal twisted and broke. Warning alarms screamed through the entire station. Station Chief was a massive creature that looked like a giant beetle standing upright. She had managed 7 for 20 years. She had seen many emergencies, but this one was different. Report, she shouted into her communication device. 3 compartments breached, her officer replied. Sections 47 through 49. We have a major hull breach in Section 48. Checked her screens. Her blood went cold. The delegation, she whispered. They were a peaceful species. They were good traders and honest diplomats, but they breathed methane gas. If they were exposed to the normal air of the station, they would die in minutes. And their section was right next to the breach. What is the status of the section? Demanded. The blast doors should have sealed automatically, but they're jammed. The crash damaged the mechanism. Methane is leaking out. Station air is leaking in. They have maybe 15 minutes before the mixture becomes deadly. Closed her eyes. 15 minutes. That was not enough time. Their repair drones were too slow. Their engineers could not survive in the mixed atmosphere. She opened a channel to the entire station. All personnel, evacuate to the central shelters. I repeat, evacuate to the central shelters. We are attempting to negotiate an evacuation for the delegation, but I must be honest with you. The situation is very bad. In the human quarters, Sergeant was putting on her boots when she heard the announcement. She was a security officer, trained for combat and emergencies. When she heard about she immediately started thinking. "What's the exact problem?" she asked Lieutenant, who was checking his own equipment. "Blast doors won't close. The breach is too big for remote repair, and no species on the station can survive both vacuum and methane." Smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a human who had just found a problem to solve. "Get me to the command center," she said. "I have an idea." When walked into the command center, looked at her with tired eyes. The beetle-like alien had already accepted defeat. 40 were going to die, and there was nothing she could do. "I know how to save them," announced. Santini twitched. "How?" "The area is impossible to reach. You would need to survive vacuum exposure, then navigate through mixed atmosphere, then manually close the blast doors. No being can do all of that." Nodded. "No being except a human. Your standard EVA suits are rated for 3 minutes of vacuum exposure. The journey would take at least 20 minutes. I know. You would die." "Maybe," pulled out a roll of thick tape from her bag. "Or maybe not. Do you have more of this industrial sealant tape? I need about 10 rolls." Park arrived a few minutes later carrying her engineering kit. She had heard about's plan on the way. She did not look surprised. She looked focused. "What's the plan?" asked. "I'm going to tape up my suit to make it hold longer. Then I'm going to walk through vacuum to the damaged section, navigate through the methane air mixture, and manually close the blast doors." Nodded slowly. "That's insane even for us." "I know. The suit will still leak." "I know. You'll run out of oxygen before you're done." "I'll hold my breath." Made a choking sound. "Hold your breath in vacuum while working, that's impossible." Was already wrapping tape around the joints of her EVA suit. "Humans can hold their breath for a long time if we train. The world record is over 20 minutes. I'm not that good, but I can do about 5 minutes under stress." "That's still not enough time." "It'll have to be." Started helping with the tape. "The suit's going to get cold, really cold. The temperature in that section is probably -40 degrees. I'll move fast." Walked over and handed a metal bar. "Here, for the blast doors, in case they're really stuck." Took the bar and tested its weight. Perfect. She finished tapping her suit. It looked ridiculous. Silver tape covered every seam, every joint, every possible gap. She looked like a strange silver creature from another world. Which realized she was. "Opening maintenance shaft 7, announced. "Good luck." Climbed into the shaft without hesitation. The darkness swallowed her within seconds. In the command center, everyone watched the life signs monitor. They could see heartbeat, her oxygen levels, her body temperature. They could track her position through the station. The first compartment was already in vacuum. When entered, her suit temperature dropped immediately. Frost started forming on her visor. The tape was holding, but just barely. Tiny hisses of escaping air could be heard on her communication device. "First compartment clear," reported. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Moving to section 2. The second compartment was worse. Vacuum and methane were mixing in chaotic swirls. The sensors couldn't get clear readings. It was like a toxic storm in an airless space. Entered anyway. "Visibility is bad," she reported. "I can't see more than a meter ahead, navigating by memory." She had studied the station's layout for months. Every corridor, every junction, every maintenance access point. She had memorized it all because she was bored, because that's what humans did when they had free time. They prepared for disasters that might never come. The disasters always came. "Oxygen at 50%, reported from the command center. Her voice was tight with worry. "Copy that. Temperature at -35. Your suit is failing. I know, I can feel it. In the third compartment, 40 huddled around emergency atmospheric generators. They were a gentle species. Their bodies were soft and bluish-green. They had never developed weapons or armor because their home world had no predators. Now they were going to die because a cargo ship made a small mistake. Then they heard the pounding. Something was hitting the jammed blast door from the other side, again and again. Hard, rhythmic impacts that shook the metal. The door groaned, metal bent, and then with a horrible screeching sound the door started to move. A figure stepped through the gap. It was covered in frost and ice. Its visor was cracked. Vapor was streaming from a dozen holes in its suit. It was human. Grabbed the manual override lever with both hands. Her oxygen was gone. She had been holding her breath for 3 minutes. Her lungs were burning. Her vision was going dark at the edges. She pulled the lever anyway. The blast doors slammed shut. The compartment sealed. Emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing the atmosphere. They were saved. Fell to her knees, finally gasping for air. The atmosphere was not perfect for humans, but it had enough oxygen to breathe. She was going to live. They surrounded her. Their soft hands touched her gently. Their translator devices were broken from the emergency, so they could not speak to her. But they didn't need words. They bowed, all 40 of them, bowing to the strange creature who had walked through death to save them. 22 minutes later, rescue teams cut through from the safe sections. They found sitting against a wall, surrounded by who refused to leave her side. "How are you feeling?" the medical officer asked. Coughed, "I need a new suit, and maybe a hot shower." "How did you survive? The readings show you were exposed to vacuum for over 8 minutes. "I just kept moving, kept working, didn't really have time to die." The medical officer stared at her for a long moment. Then he added a new entry to his file on human capabilities. Note: humans apparently consider death to be optional during emergencies. Further study required. In the command center was already writing her report to the Galactic Council. The subject line read, "Priority Revision NEADED, Human Classification." The current classification said humans were dangerous. Was starting to think that classification was not strong enough. 6 months after the humans arrived, the pirates came. The marauders were feared across the galaxy. They had attacked hundreds of stations and ships. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who fought back. Their leader was named the Bloody, and he had earned that name many times over. When 12 warships dropped out of hyperspace around 7, the station's defenders knew they were in trouble. Station Chief watched the ships appear on her screens. Her heart sank. The station had some weapons, but not enough. They had some security forces, but not enough. Against the marauders, they had no chance. "All personnel," she announced over the station-wide communication system, "evacuate to the central shelters. We will attempt to negotiate surrender terms." All over the station, beings stopped what they were doing and started moving toward the shelters. Shop owners closed their stores. Diplomats gathered their documents. Everyone knew what they did to stations that fought back. But in the human quarters, no one was moving toward the shelters. Lieutenant was checking his rifle. He was the ranking Marine officer among the human contingent. He had served in 3 wars on Earth before joining the space program. He was calm and focused. "How many of us can fight?" he asked. Corporal Shin was already in her combat armor. 8 Marines including you and me, plus, and if they're willing. "They're willing," said, walking in with behind him. "Where do you need us?" "That makes 11 humans against 12 warships full of pirates." Grinned. It was a wild, dangerous grin. Those poor bastards have no idea what they're walking into. Smiled back, "No, they don't." The boarding parties hit the station through multiple docking points. The first wave came through Docking Bay 7. 40 warriors rushed out of their ship, weapons ready. They were huge creatures, covered in scales and spikes. Their teeth were sharp. Their claws could cut through metal. They expected to find frightened civilians. They expected easy targets. Instead, they found, and 3 Marines waiting at the first corridor junction. "Good morning," said politely. "I'm going to give you one chance to turn around and leave. I suggest you take it." The leader laughed. It was a wet, gurgling sound. "One chance. There are 40 of us and 4 of you. You are the ones who should surrender." "I really wish you hadn't said that," sighed. The firefight lasted 90 seconds. When it was over, 40 lay on the floor. Some were unconscious, some were wounded, a few were dead, none of them were getting up. The 4 humans reloaded their weapons and waited. On the flagship stared at his tactical display. His first wave had just stopped. All 40 life signs were gone or fading. "What happened?" he demanded. No one answered, no one knew. A communication came through. It was a human voice. "Hey," said calmly, "I'm going to give you one chance to leave. Take it. You are 11 beings against my army. You cannot stop us." "You're probably right, we can't stop all of you," paused. "But here's the thing about humans. We don't have to stop all of you. We just have to make this cost more than you want to pay. So here's my offer. Leave now and you lose nothing else. Stay and we'll show you exactly what a species does when we're cornered." "You're bluffing." "Am I? You just lost 40 warriors in 90 seconds. Want to send more?" Was angry now. He had never been challenged like this. He had never been threatened by such a small force. It was insulting. "Second wave," he roared. 200 warriors, heavy weapons, destroy them." The second wave was massive. 200 warriors poured into the station through every entrance. They carried plasma cannons and explosive weapons. They wore heavy armor. They were ready for war. They were not ready for park. The engineer had spent 6 months studying every system on 7. She knew every wire, every conduit, every emergency protocol. The station was her tool now, and she was going to use it. The first group of 50 warriors moved through Corridor 12. They were fast and disciplined. They checked every corner, every doorway. They did not check the ceiling. Was in the maintenance shaft above them. She had it connected to the station's systems. When they were directly below her, she smiled. "Sorry about this," she whispered. "Actually, no, I'm not sorry." She triggered the emergency airlock. The corridor vented to space instantly. 50 warriors were sucked out into the cold void before they could even scream. The airlock sealed behind them. The second group of entered Cargo Bay 14. They moved carefully, having heard about what happened to the first group. They checked above them. They checked below them. They checked everywhere. But they did not know that had modified the gravity generators. When she activated them, the gravity in Cargo Bay 14 increased to 12 times normal. On Earth, this would be uncomfortable. For it was devastating. Their bodies were crushed against the floor, their bones shattered, their internal organs failed. They had never evolved to survive high gravity. They were not from a. The third group actually made it to the human defensive position. They burst through a door, weapons ready, expecting a desperate last stand. They found waiting for them with her arms crossed. "Finally," she said cheerfully, "I was getting bored." They attacked. They were fast, deadly predators. Their claws and teeth had killed thousands of beings across the galaxy. Was faster. She moved through them like water. When they struck at her, she was not there. When they tried to shoot her, she had already moved behind them. She used their own strength against them, redirecting their attacks into each other. And she was laughing. The surviving would later describe what they saw in terrified whispers. A human female, small and seemingly weak, dancing through their ranks. Her hands moved too fast to see. Her body bent in ways that should not be possible, and she was laughing the entire time. Laughing. When it was over, 30 lay on the floor, did not have a single scratch on her. That was fun, she announced. Anyone else? There was no one else. On the flagship, the Bloody watched his forces collapse. He had sent 240 warriors. Less than 50 were still responding, and the humans had not lost a single fighter. He was not a stupid creature. He had survived for decades by knowing when to attack and when to run. This was a time to run. All ships, he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. Retreat, full speed. The fleet turned and fled. Their engines blazed as they raced toward hyperspace. In minutes, they were gone. In the station's voice came over the communication system. This is Lieutenant. The threat has been eliminated. All personnel can return to their normal activities. All over 7 beings emerged from shelters. They walked through corridors that showed signs of battle. They saw the fallen. They saw the damage. And they saw 11 humans gathering in the recreation hall, laughing and sharing drinks like nothing had happened. Ambassador approached them carefully. His crystal body was shifting through colors he had never experienced before. You defeated the Marauders, he said. 11 of you against 240 of them. Technically, the station did most of the work, said modestly. I just pushed some buttons. I just redirected some attacks, added. We just shot back, finished. Stared at them for a long moment. Then he sat down heavily. I need a drink, he said. Poured him something from an earth bottle. Here, try this. It's called soju, it's from Mai. Drank it in one gulp. Then he coughed for several minutes. That is terrible, he gasped. Yeah, agreed, but it helps. In the years that followed, no pirates ever attacked 7 again. The story spread across the galaxy. 11 humans against an army, and the humans had won without breaking a sweat. Some species thought it was exaggerated. Some thought it was propaganda. Those species were wrong. They knew the truth, and they never forgot it. Neither did anyone else. 1 year had passed since the humans arrived on 7. The station had changed completely. It was now the most peaceful trading post in the entire sector, not because of better security systems, not because of new laws or treaties. It was peaceful because everyone knew the humans were there. Species that had fought each other for centuries suddenly found reasons to cooperate. Disputes that would have ended in violence were now resolved through calm discussion. Criminals who had operated freely for decades quietly moved to other stations. No one wanted to be the reason a human got involved. Ambassador had spent the entire year studying the humans. He had written 17 official reports about their behavior. Each report was more alarmed than the last. His latest conclusion had been sent to every species council in the galaxy. The report said many things, but its main point was simple. Humans did not understand that they were dangerous. They truly believed they were normal. They looked at their history, full of wars and disasters and extinction events, and called it getting by. They looked at their planet, a world that would kill any other species in hours, and called it pretty nice. This was the most terrifying thing about them. If you asked a human to do something impossible, they would not argue. They would not explain why it could not be done. They would simply nod and start working on it. And somehow, against all logic and reason, they would succeed. The phrase, "hold my beer," had become famous across the galaxy. Every translator device now had it in its memory. Every diplomat had been warned about it. Every military leader had it in their briefings. When a human said those words, the correct response was to run. Not because the human would fail, because they would succeed in ways that broke reality. On the observation deck of 7, Lieutenant sat watching ships drift past the viewport. Beside him sat the who had once been called the Unyielding. Was different now. After his defeat in the Pain Pillar Challenge, he had spent months thinking. He had given up his title and his warrior ways. Now he called himself the Wise. He had become a philosopher, spending his days thinking about the nature of the universe. He had also become friend. "I have been thinking about your species," said. His voice was calm now, not the roaring challenge it had once been. "Good thoughts or bad thoughts?" "Complicated thoughts," turned his massive head to look at the human. "You have only been in space for 200 years. That is nothing. Many species have been traveling between stars for millions of years. Compared to them, you are infants." "That's fair. And yet you have already changed everything. Every species in this station thinks about humans now. Every government in the galaxy is adjusting their plans because of you. In 200 years, you have done what other species could not do in millions." Shrugged. "We're good at adapting, I guess." "It is more than that." Leaned forward. "Do you know what terrifies me most about your kind?" "What?" "What will you be in 1,000 years? In 10,000, you grow so fast. You learn so quickly. Your technology advances at a rate that frightens our scientists. If you are this powerful now at the beginning of your journey, what will you become at the end?" Was quiet for a long moment. He watched a trading ship dock at the station. He watched crews moving cargo. He watched the normal, peaceful activity of 1,000 species living together. "Probably still trying to figure things out," he finally said. "Making mistakes, learning from them, helping where we can. And getting into trouble." Smiled, almost certainly. Behind them, someone shouted. They both turned to see Park sprinting past, her tools rattling in her bag. "What's wrong?" called out. "The atmospheric processors are doing something interesting," shouted back without stopping. A moment later ran past as well. Her expression was worried. "What kind of interesting?" asked. "The exploding kind," yelled over her shoulder. And looked at each other. "Should we help?" asked. "They'll call if they need us. Usually handles these things." They went back to watching the stars. Somewhere in the station the sound of small explosions could be heard, then silence, then cheering. Nodded to himself. "See, she handled it." In the command center, Station Chief had just received a report that the atmospheric processors had nearly overloaded. The report also said that Engineer Park had fixed the problem using a piece of wire, some tape, and something called percussive maintenance. Had learned not to ask what that meant. She had also learned to keep emergency supplies ready whenever the humans started a project. Extra medical kits, extra repair materials, extra stress medication for herself. Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from Docking Bay 3. "Chief, we have a situation. Sergeant is arm wrestling with an ambassador. Should we intervene?" Sighed. "Is anyone getting hurt?" "The ambassador looks like he's about to cry." "Let it play out. Just make sure she doesn't break his arm." Understood. This was life on 7 now. Strange events that would have caused panic a year ago were now just normal Thursday activities. The humans had changed everything simply by being themselves. And perhaps that was the real lesson. The galaxy had spent millions of years being afraid. Afraid of the void. Afraid of other species. Afraid of the unknown. Every civilization had grown up with fear as their teacher. But humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day. They had learned a different lesson. They had learned that fear was just another problem to solve, that danger was just another challenge to overcome, that impossible was just another word for not done yet. They did not conquer their fear. They did not ignore it. They simply refused to let it stop them. And when they saw others in danger, they did not calculate the risks. They did not weigh the costs. They just helped, because that was what humans did. That night was in the recreation hall, teaching a group of young how to play poker. The gentle blue-green beings were terrible at bluffing, but they were having fun. Across the room was indeed arm wrestling with the ambassador. She was clearly winning, but she was doing it slowly, letting him feel like he had a chance. At the bar, was explaining to a group of engineers how she had fixed the atmospheric processors. She was using terms that no translator could handle, but her audience was fascinated anyway. And in the corner, the wise was writing a book. It was called Thoughts on Humans. It would become the most widely read philosophical text in galactic history. The book ended with a simple warning. If a ever says, "Hold my beer, run." Do not think, do not question, do not look back, just run. Not because you are in danger. The human will probably save you. Run because what you are about to see will change everything you believe about the universe. It will show you that the impossible is possible, that limits are illusions, that one small, fragile-looking being from a death planet can reshape reality through nothing but stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Run because after you see what a human can do, you will never be able to pretend that you are helpless again. And some truths once learned cannot be unlearned. The book was translated into every language in the galaxy. The warning was ignored. Humans kept saying, "Hold my beer." And the galaxy kept watching in amazement as the impossible happened, over and over again. Some things never changed. But that was okay. The humans seemed to like it that way.